Our panel this morning, our second panel this morning, is Introduction to Empowering Women in Agriculture. This is really my favorite panel, can you tell? Women, on average, comprise 43% of the agricultural labor force in developing countries and account for an estimated 2/3 of the world's 600 million poor livestock keepers. Providing them equal access to agricultural resources is essential for improving global food security. Someone also said to me yesterday that they are ultimately the farming decision makers as well. I'd like to introduce the chair and her panel to the stage, Jenny Costelloe, Director, Country Partnerships, GrowAsia.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks to the organisers. Thank you for the introduction, and it's great to be here. My name is Jenny Costelloe, and I am Director of Country Partnerships of GrowAsia. My colleague Alison moderated a panel yesterday, and she gave you a snapshot of what GrowAsia is, but allow me to repeat or say it in a slightly different way. We are catalysed by the World Economic Forum, and we're aligned with the ASEAN Integrated Food Strategy. And we're a platform for multi-stakeholder partnerships in agriculture. Our focus is on the smallholder farmer, and we bring together business, government, academia, NGOs, and farmer organisations to empower farmers with a view to increasing farmer profitability, farm productivity, and environmental sustainability. That's my pitch out of the way. I'm here today to moderate a panel on women in agriculture. In a previous life, I advised companies on strategies, business strategies that empowered women. And this is a topic that's really important to me and frustrates the hell out of me, frankly, excuse my language, because we don't know what to do. We don't know how to do things better. But I do hope that this morning's panel will give you some takeaway thoughts, help you understand the issues a bit, and make you think differently about women in your agriculture business. So I'm just wondering whether to invite the panelists on stage first, and then I'll do a bit of context setting. So Biranchi, you're already walking towards the stage. Let me just invite all the panelists, and I haven't got the profiles with me. Oh dear. This is Biranchi from Hivos International. Then Siti, Amanah, do you want to come up? This is Prof. Anna, you told me to call you, come up. Andi from Mondelēz, and Thuy from Vietnam. Please take a seat. Warm welcome to the panel. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to take a few minutes to set the context. And indulge me in this a bit. I want to begin with a visualization. I want you, the audience, to participate in this. I want you to close your eyes. Nobody does that when, thank you, Tony. Close your eyes and take a deep breath. Please bear with me. Just do this. I want you to visualize. Think of a country in Asia. And think of a rural scene in Asia. The sun is rising over the fields, the birds are singing, and work is beginning on the farm. A farmer is preparing for the day's work ahead. It's hot, back-breaking, heavy work, ploughing the land, sowing the seeds, spreading the fertilizer, and maybe later, if there's time, the farmer will go to a neighbouring field to harvest some crops. That farmer will then carry the heavy harvest back to their home. The farmer stretches and slowly walks towards the field. How many of you imagined a male farmer? Hands up if you imagined a female farmer. Okay. Statistically, about 50% of farmers in Asia are women. And I think the very fact that we had maybe a dozen hands, 12 hands, showing they thought of women farmers, indicates that we don't really think of women as farmers, and we don't think of women when we're working in agriculture. And I personally think that that's a little bit of it's a starting point for where the problem begins. The other thought exercise is relating to something that Paul said, which is about, or someone on the previous panel, sorry, said that women are the decision makers in the home. So not only are women the farmers, or the majority of farmers. They're also the people who are buying the food. They're preparing the food. So they are your suppliers and they are your customers. And so I really think that there's businesses that fail to recognise that women are suppliers and customers for food are missing a huge opportunity. So just to give you a few statistics, in some countries such as India and Bangladesh, up to 80% of farm work is done by women. In South Asia, 70% of the women who work in any sector, 70% are working in agriculture. That's a huge number. And yet women do not have equal access to land. They own approximately 1% of the world's property. They don't have equal access to education or training, extension services. They don't have equal access to seeds and inputs, water, tools, technologies, all the things that make farming possible. And they don't have equal access to finance and to credit. Or, as Paul described them, the common resources that make farming possible. Now, the frustrating thing for me is that when they do have equal access, when women have equal access to these resources, children will go to school and incomes will increase and more money will be invested back into the community and into the home. Health in a community improves when there are equal rights and economies prosper. The statistic that is only partially captured in the conference brochure, which I find absolutely staggering, is that according to the FAO, there are 1.1 billion women farmers who do not have access to the common resources in farming. But if they did, they could produce 20 to 30% more food, and that additional food production could lift 150 million people out of hunger. So if you want the business case for giving women equal rights to common resources, I think that's it. 150 million people go hungry because we continuously and systematically ignore women in our agriculture value chains. But I do think there's an opportunity, and I promise you I would just set the context and then we'd get on to our panel. I think there's an opportunity to do things differently. There is an opportunity to try to do things differently. And I want today to invite our panel to talk about why women in agriculture should be empowered, why they aren't empowered, and how can they be empowered. And then we'll open the floor to questions. So that's just a couple of contextual comments from me. I'm going to sit down and invite the panel to talk now.
Yeah, this morning when I came to this room, people asked me, what was I going to do in this panel? And I said I'm a feminist, and I'm proud to be one. Thank you. Let me begin by sharing a story that Hivos and myself have been part of. The name of the woman is Dina. She lives somewhere between Tanzania and Kenya, in the border close to the border of Kenya. It's very remote. The trouble started when her husband died. She had 13 children to take care of. And when her husband died, her one brother wanted to marry her because he wanted that the land should stay with the family, and that he was wondering what, after all, a woman is going to do with a piece of land. So that was the suggestion. Of course, the woman turned it down, and we can easily imagine what then happened. Few blows, kicks. She was disfigured. She was thrown to the street to fend for herself with 13 children. She lived on street. She had to pull out her children from the school because they had to find some food for them, and they had to work. And this is when we got to know her. We thought she could be involved in something that we do. It is called GALS training program. It's Gender Accent Learning System training, capacity building program, and she got involved. And then she, through that process, mustered enough courage to fight a legal battle and finally won it, got back the land, title in her name, and within a year, she was able to turn it around to a profitable farm. And she did like many in East Asia, East Africa do, that she did grow subsistence crops like vegetables for her own consumption. She also did a bit of coffee to find cash, and had her own cattle as well. And so it turned out to be a comprehensive farming program. So that's the story of Dina, and I'm sure a lot of us in this room know Dina's in wherever we come from, and in this case she was from Tanzania and Kenya border, but she could be from anywhere, really. So that brings me to the second thing. What is this girls that we NGOs use? And as I said, it is it's gender accent learning system. So what it entails? It's like any other planning tool. It sort of does the analysis of the existing context. It dreams about the future, and then it defines a path from the present context how to traverse to the future. That's basically the technique. But it is a technique which is used at the household level very much. So it's a household level methodology that's called GALS. So what is this four-dimensional analytics that this particular technique uses? So one is entitlement, that invariably we have seen that women do not have access and control over land. They may have access, but it is negotiated through men, but invariably they do not have control. They do not have land rights. Without land rights, they cannot access financial resources. One. Two, power. There is clearly inequality in power relation. In many places we have seen women may be producing enough, they may be making profit from their engagement in commercial enterprises, including farm, but they do not necessarily make decisions how it will be spent. Third, unequal division of labor. Women's labor is undervalued. In many places, they also get less wage. And finally, it is reproductive rights, which is not very much recognized. It's called unpaid care work. A lot of work that women do, it remains unpaid. And on top of it, in many households, women also experience on day-to-day basis violence in some form or the other. So these are the four different dimensions, analytics that GAL uses to define the household condition, in which condition men and women live. And then we use that to have a conversation between husband and wife within the family, engage community. We use visuals, we use pictures, because a lot of people are not literate enough. And then, you know, we have designed locally contextualized training materials which we use for capacity building. So Hivos, we work in Latin America, Africa, and here in Asia with a significant number of coffee farmers. We partner with private sector player, a major player, e-com. And our basic intervention is this GAL, the Gender Action Learning System. So where we have got to with this, just to give you some statistics, that what we have found our survey, and we were shared with various statistics, but this is what we have experienced from our intervention, that two things. One is that we have invariably seen that if the income is flowing to the hands of women and they have significant control, they can exercise control over it, you have a 90% chance of that being spent in family welfare, that's health and education. In case of men, it's 40%. So is that what we have seen also measuring our intervention with controlled areas is that level goes up, the production goes up at least from 24% to 44% if the GAL is used correctly. So what it means, how it connects to the big picture, since yesterday we have been talking about that we have to feed by 2050 a staggering 9.7 billion people, right? And we are looking at the solution to come from technology, from infrastructure, from research and development, from new kinds of seeds, from climate change adaptations and so on. But what I try to say based on my experience with GAL and the piece of work that we have done, this problem can significantly be addressed. At least 50% food security can be ensured if women's rights can be ensured in agriculture. They can ensure food security and they can do that with sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Biranchi. So the next panelist is Dr. Siti Amanah, who has told me I can call her Aan, which I'm not sure I'm going to get right. And she's a senior lecturer at the Bogor in Agriculture University in Indonesia. So do you want to share a couple of comments for three or so minutes and how you approach women in agriculture?
Okay, thank you, Jenny. Good morning, everybody. I'm happy to be here, and I would like to share some thought of me and some experience that I have when interacting with women, especially in the context of empowering women. For me, empowering women means providing opportunity for women to grow better with the family also, because in Indonesia and maybe in other Asian countries, women involved in providing food, and they also interact in the cultivation of the crops from the very beginning, from seed selection, take care of the plant until post-harvesting. And also in some area in West Java, women also involved in processing the crops to be sold and handling the crop better. Some issue that rise, as Arda mentioned also with Jenny, is about asset provision, and also how could women access better extension services. This is the case that I also found in the field, that how could we facilitate better the women in their groups, learning group, because my background is in researching and education and also communication for development, so-called extension services. We keep advocacy, give advocates or advice to local government and also central government to design and implement better the agricultural policy. And now we are working on designing a better extension policy to approach not only women in close to the area of the city, but also in rural area, because you know our country comprised of 17,000 islands and widespread from Aceh to Papua. Every place have their own specific issue, not only because of climate change, but also the local governmental policy that need to be addressed by all of us. Also, the partnership with the business sector has improved the woman capacity in handling the farm, because as we discussed yesterday in the rice working group, the issue about pest management need not only chemical, but better improve our service to provide women to choices what kind of technology that can be used in local area that so we call it appropriate technology. And how about the student? In the class or in the practically, we try to move from the approach women in development, just involving women, to relationship between men and women. Because if we empower women, then we also invite men to work together. If not, then women will in the trap of getting double burden. They will get more work to provide money. That's why we try to harmonize the approach, that when we include women, we also educate men to understand the issue that women face in the daily life, not only in domestic, but also in the public sphere. That's called.
Fantastic, thank you very much, Anne. So we've heard from Hivos, an NGO, talking about a household-level analytic model, which which produces a pathway to better income and food security. And then from an agriculture university, we're looking at the importance of women having better access to extension services, the importance of policy, and also the inclusion of men in the women's empowerment agenda. And I know there's a question on Pigeonhole about that, and we might come back and explore that a little bit later. So from academia and the NGOs, we're going to now turn to business. And Andi from Mondelēz International leads a very interesting project called Cocoa Life. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the project, please, Andi?
Thank you, Jenny.
Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you for the Responsible Business Forum for the opportunity today to share about Mondelēz Cocoa Life program. I also would like to compliment to the committee on the diversity of the panelists today. I mean, especially today that we are talking about women empowerment. It's really great to see that there is a diversity of the panelists. It's not only male, but it's also female in this panelists. So Mondelēz Cocoa Life is a part of the Mondelēz International program. The program mainly is not focused only on the productivity, but it's also on the community development. And we have a 5 pillars that really focus on these 2 elements with the cross-cutting on the woman empowerment. So promoting the woman empowerment has been an essential element of the Cocoa Life since we started the program in 2008. We actually believe that gender equity is essential because everyone will benefit from the gender equity, and it's essential for the cocoa and other agriculture program to thrive in the community. We recently conducted the assessment by Harvard University and CARE International, where saw that there is a shrinking gap in the women in the agriculture, especially in the cocoa program, where women actually have less access to the financing, less access to the ownership of the land, less access to the education, and it's also on the farm input. We found out that in cocoa, the women have a less 40% of income from the cocoa and the other income resource compared to the male counterpart. We also find out that in cocoa there is about 21% less compared to the production that produced by the male farmer. Our experience also saw that it's really vital that women in the farming activity, but mainly sometimes even though they don't really see as a farmer in their own right. They are often excluded from participating in a group training program. They actually contribute more to the commodity crop. They're actually also cultivating other crop, food crop, to support the family and to get more income resource. We have seen that when women actually involved in the supply chain, we see improvement in the farm management by the farmer. We see the youth having a better education. We see that it's more sustainable and the community even more thriving. As a Mondelēz, that we are committed to this gender and woman empowerment. We sign off on the United Nations Women Empowerment Principle with the 7 principles actually advancing the equality between male and female in the cocoa farming. It's not only in the supply chain, but it's also on the operation. The way that we see this gender equality, that we not only do it on the day-to-day operation, we don't set a target on this, but really integrated this into our program. We recently also published our gender report. So you probably asked that why we are doing this gender report in this program. Is mainly to understand more about how the gender in the cocoa area and the community. And from that, we come up with the gender action plan and woman action plan for the top 4 cocoa countries worldwide. And for example, Indonesia, one of the activities that we're doing there is like in the 79 Cocoa Life community, we mobilize women to form the farmer group, and more that we have been set up another more than 60 farmer group in next 60 community. We also dedicated ourselves to advocating on the women rights and women empowerment in cocoa program and in multi-stakeholder platform and organizations like WCF or World Cocoa Foundation. We know that ourselves is not really the core expert on this woman empowerment. So part of our program that we have a principle to do the activity on the partnership. So we actually collaborate in partnership with global NGO, Care International, Save the Children, World Vision, VSO, dan Solidaridad. The main activity that we're doing, instead of talking on the national level only and not doing the activity, we are doing this all the women empowerment directly with the action plan in the ground, in the cocoa farmer, and basically in the cocoa community. When I say that it's cocoa community, it's not really focused on the cocoa farmer, but it's basically focused in the area where there is a cocoa farmer. Then the impact of the woman empowerment is not only reach out to the cocoa farmer and household, but also impact to the other community member in the area that focus probably in the other agricultural crop or the other food sector. Thank you.
Okay. Andy, just before you pass on the mic, can you just maybe give a couple of tangible examples of what the Cocoa Life activities are? You talk about it not being just specifically the cocoa farmers, but more in the community. Is it training? Is it, what, is it microfinance? Give me some examples.
Sure. Part of the program that we, for example, that we integrate the gender awareness in all program leaders training. We also integrate the gender awareness on the community leaders training. And when we design the program and activity in the ground through the community design program, we integrate the female perspective in the program itself. And when we do the implementation, the woman farmer is also involved, also the woman in the community. Additional to that, most of the training usually focus on the focus on the men at the moment. So what we are doing that we integrated the woman into the training. So not only seeing the woman as number of the woman that in the training, but actually seeing that the woman doing the training, they also adopt on the training and they apply the training. Additional to that, then we also doing leadership training to the woman. We are doing the business training to the woman. So this is partly to increase the leadership of the woman in the community. And additional to that, that we also training the woman on the business entrepreneurship, and of course the training on the access to finance and farm input and how to work with the other community. The other program that usually done in the community development program is like, we are doing the community action plan. So instead of just having the woman as part of the community, on the community action plan, the woman actually part of the community action plan committee, or we call it CODEC. Probably Indonesia is most of the time called Musrembang Committee, and they come up with their action and idea on how they actually can improve the community, how they can integrate their need into the community, and against that, by having this all gender equity on this community action plan and codec, then we can get a comprehensive plan on the action plan for this community to support the development of the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. So our next panelist is Nguyen Thuy from the Research Centre for Gender, Family and Environment Development in Vietnam. Do you want to make a few comments about women in agriculture, please, Thuy? Thank you.
Hello, everybody.
I think you need to use microphone.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. I want to introduce some context of the women in agriculture of the Vietnam. Agriculture economics account for over 20% of the Vietnam GDP, and women in rural area takes on almost of the work related rice production, vegetable planting and breeding. Currently, they produce more than 60% of agricultural products. The rural women labor in the Vietnam accounts for 58% of the workforce in agriculture, forestry, and fishery. In agriculture, in particular, has 56% women labor. And in agriculture, enterprise, and related services, the female worker account for 32% of total employees, and in the manufacture food products, female worker account for 51% of total employer. And this above figure indicate that the women participate and have opportunity to contribute greatly to agricultural production. However, they encounter many obstacles in proving their role in agricultural production. Firstly, they lack production knowledge and techniques. According to survey from the UN Women and Fowl, currently over 70% of the rural women labor in the Vietnam do not have access to occupational training due to limitation in their education level. Women have few opportunity to participate in training courses for new production technology. One example, only 20% of breeding extension training course has the participant of the woman, and only 10% of the learner participating in planting extension training course are women. That so-called phenomenon woman work, men learn is quite popular in the Vietnam rural area. And secondly, the women do not have decisively strong voice in production and utilization of production resources as land and capital. Now the only 20% of the women have their name appearing softly in legal certificates for land exploitation right, while 80% of these certificates has a man name or name of both the husband and wife. This will create difficult for women if they want to put up the certificates for land exploitation right as a collateral for bank loan.
Okay.
And thirdly, they have declined due to the hard work. Not only do women participate in production work, but they also take a main responsibility to do housework, child care, and elderly people caretaking. They have also declined due to the environmental pollution. The environment is polluted due to the overuse of pesticide and growth stimulant chemical. Even though the Vietnam have achieved many significant results in gender equality and is high appraised by international organizations as a highlight of gender equality, still there are a lot of manifestations of gender inequality, especially the labor works, as I mentioned above.
Do Do you mind if we move to questions? I know I can just see that we've got so many questions coming through, and I know that we promised the floor that we would open to the floor. And thank you all for painting a very bleak picture for women in agriculture. I think the statistics are, well, they're irrefutable. Something needs to change. And one of the most popular questions we have today is, can you provide samples of successful business cases in empowering women? I hope this question went up before the Mondelēz example. But from the other panelists, do you know of businesses or companies who are doing interesting, that have interesting initiatives and effective initiatives for women in agriculture? Biranchi, do you want to give an example of a company that you know of?
Yeah, thanks. This is in Indonesia. As I mentioned, here we work with coffee farmers, and we have got access to about 12,000 coffee farmers in Lampung area, working with the private sector e-com. And we have been introducing this GAL technique there. So things are changing. Of course, it is early days, and but certainly there is significant improvement in terms of, say, for I mentioned the 4 analytics that we are using in terms of entitlement. I think we can give examples of where land, which is basically registered in the name of men, being registered now in the names of both men and women. In terms of decisions about what gets spent on what, because women need to feel ownership of assets to be able to commit something long term, because coffee plantation is something that requires long term commitment. It's not going to give immediate benefits. So you have to keep your hope and investment going for some time. And this is when, you know, the difference between men and women come, is that women think, what if my husband died? And you know, I lose the control and access to the piece of land. So these are the kind of conversation through which we are creating mechanism at the family level, taking into consideration this scenario: if somebody dies, if husband dies, what happens? So yeah, so in that particular, the example that we are giving, what we understand that we have been, the private sector player have been doing training, in this case e-com, with regard to good agricultural practice. So that probably everybody does, and which is good, still need to be done. But once this good agricultural practice training alone was not giving the desired outcome. So once we started factoring in the gender analytics into it, the movement has been much faster towards the outcome, what we are trying to, expecting to get out of it.
Okay. I'm going to break this normal convention of moderation. I'm going to actually turn to somebody in the audience who comes from business, and he was just talking to me this morning about an idea for women in agriculture, in his agriculture business. But Imran, you agreed that you would share your idea and also just talk a little bit about the challenges that you're facing. It's to the question about what a business is doing.
Up the panel, great stories. We're trying to make an effort in Indonesia. Louis Dreyfus is a large player in the world of coffee, amongst other commodities. The story that we just started working on, is a story about women. It's a story about women farmers in the North Sumatra area, around Lake Toba. And the story is simple. These women are impoverished. They have all the issues that you mentioned about land rights. And a lot of them are widows. And a lot of them don't have children to pass on their techniques or their knowledge to. So what we're trying to do is to take this story to the world, and what we want to do is get the large roasters of the world, our friends at Nestle or Nespresso, Lavazza, of the world to realize that there are stories that we want to project. So we want to take these women to produce and grow this sustainable coffee, and to take that story all the way to the cafes in Vienna and Paris. And for the consumers and our friends to share a little more. How do we intend to do that? We want to build a training institute in the Lake Toba area, which we want to call the Mothers Training Institute, so that these ladies have a legacy that they transfer. It's not to their children, but it's the children of Toba, it's the children of Sumatra, it's the children of Indonesia, and our old children. So that's our story. We're working, it's work in progress, we are trying, and this is a great forum to raise it. I hope you can have many stories like this and we can raise that together. Thank you very much.
Okay. That was very brave. Thank you, Imran. You heard it here first, and if he comes back next year and isn't reporting on progress, you can hold him to account on that. So thanks for sharing. But I think one of the things I do here is that the women's empowerment initiatives in business tend to be projects rather than mainstream business models. I personally think that procurement is the place that you should start in an agriculture business, looking at how you source and who you source from, in terms of looking at gender criteria. And actually, as I'm talking, and I'm making eye contact with a guy from Monsanto, and I know Monsanto does some great work on this in America, but we couldn't get an example of it in Asia, where proactively selecting female suppliers just transforms your business, and it's something that not only agriculture companies can do. I want to address a question which is about why there are four female panelists and only one male panelist, and it relates also to the question about what can businesses do. I was working with Tony in the Global Initiatives team, and it's really, really hard to find men to talk about women's empowerment. Okay. Many of you will have seen Emma Watson and her UN Women He for She campaign, which is it's very thought-provoking, but it's very, very real as well, that there are not very many men in business who are willing to acknowledge the business case for women in their supply chains and women as their customers, and to stand up and make some commitments about it. So I'm sharing that as a challenge to the many men in the room who are business leaders and decision makers, to think differently about what they do for women in agriculture. We're delighted, of course, at Biranchi. Skewed the statistics a little bit in favour of men, okay. Going to move on to another question, which is about the role, whose role is it to improve women's access to the common resources, to access to finance, access to land, access to training. I mean, the statistic that you shared, Thuy, that over 70% of women lacked occupational training in Vietnam in agriculture. It's just a shocking statistic. So who's getting it wrong? Is it what sector, and what should people be doing? Thuy, do you want to comment on that? Who should help women have equal access to common resources?
I think to support the woman to access the resources, access the training, extension training is needs involve the government, the enterprise in whole country. For example, the agriculture enterprise and the government is needs focus intensively training high quality for women labor in order to keep up with the regional and global economic integration trends, and to accomplish this task. I think the government needs to provide the gender indicator in planning, implementing, and monitoring their policy program and projects. I I think the government and the enterprise leaders in Vietnam almost the man is the same country. Therefore, if they support and they go forward in the implementing gender equality policy, I believe the man, I believe the woman in general and women in agriculture particularly will have a favorable condition to prove their role.
Do you want to make a few comments about whose role you see it as? Yeah, please.
In addition,
Do you want to?
thank you. In addition to the question, whose responsibility to take a role in providing access to women, I think, in my opinion, the government support by the business sector. Yeah, the government itself cannot do by themselves because there is a limited resources to support the women farmers. So with the cooperation between the government and the business sector can support better the women to better access to the credit, because usually business sector can invest in some kind of asset, in some kind of infrastructure to support the woman can use the technology better, for example, the technology. But in the reality, in the field, the program, if the money should be delivered to the woman group, then there is a need to a facilitator,
Okay.
to facilitate the woman better to manage the money or the credits to be used effectively.
Okay. And Andy, we spoke briefly yesterday about your project and got onto the topic that's very of great interest to me, which is partners and partners for development and how partners have helped the Mondelēz Cocoa Life project. So do you want to tell me a little bit about the NGO partners that you have that help strengthen the Cocoa Life project?
Sure.
I think you're on.
Sure. In Indonesia, I did mention about all the NGO partners that we are working in Cocoa Life program. Specific in Indonesia, we are working with Care International and Save the Children and World Vision. I mean, when I say that we are working with the global NGO, additional to that, we also working with local NGO such as Watala, APIK, Muhammadiyah, and Wahana Visi Indonesia. Their activity actually in the ground, they're having a lot of activity that really focus integrating the activity of women, of productivity to the woman. And additional to that, there are activity that really focus on the community and improvement of the livelihood. We also seeing that on the youth program activity, there is a need of support on the integrating the woman empowerment activity. We have seen that women having a lot of role on having a better education for youth, for the children, for example. And by having a children having a higher education, then we expecting hopefully that we will have a more innovative farmer in future. In the specific detail activity, the field facilitator of this NGO actually working cross partnership with the local community, including the head of the village, head of the sub-district, and head of the farmer group. And in integrating with the supply chain partner, they train the woman and involve on the facilitating the woman on the community action plan, and having a group of women specifically focused on the woman empowerment. One of the great examples that we are doing in our program in Indonesia, for example, in Lampung, in our Cocoa Life program, in collaboration with Save the Children and our supply chain partner, the community action plan in that area integrating 50% of the need that coming from the community that brought by the woman actually. I mean, you might wonder that there is a question that whether a woman actually can having a talk and discussion on thinking ahead, but in fact that we find out that if you are facilitating on the right way, if you bring them more on the discussion, the woman actually able to talk a lot then see the whole issue in the community and the need of the community itself. So it's not only on the household, so we actually empower them to take leadership and having a gender equity in the household and in the community and the sub-district and the district level.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely a broader contextual issue than just something that a company can solve on its own.
Sure. I do believe that this woman empowerment is not only role of the government or the business. I do believe that there is a role of the community itself. There is a role of the woman and the man. I mean, when I say the man, that I must say that on the traditional perspective way of thinking, we may say that women just help the husband to get more income. We actually have to change that women actually will able, as you say, that can get more production. Women actually will able to become the farmer or the leadership. But of course, they cannot do it without the support from the husband, from the father, or without the support from the man. So I do see that there is a need, a support and role of women in this woman empowerment.
Great, thank you. We've got 5 or so minutes left. I'm going to open to the floor for questions, and I'll take 3 questions just to kind of wrap up the panel discussion. Any questions? Alex, thank you. Just at the front table here, the lady in the cream jacket. And one more? Yes. Okay. Andy, sure. So Alex, I think, is the mic first. If you'd like to go ahead, Alex.
Thank you very much for an interesting conversation, and as you said, very dramatic statistics about women in agriculture. Going back to some examples that corporates have tried to put in place, many times unsuccessfully, about clear targets for women representation and empowerment. I'm talking, for instance, about the number of women sitting on boards of directors of companies, or about addressing the gender pay gap. Is there something, are there any targets that we could look at specifically for women in agriculture, and what type would they be? Could we look at, making sure that women get the same off-take price for their crop harvest as men? Or are there any other ones that we could consider? Thank you.
Nice, easy question, Alex. Thank you. We'll come back to that. Andy, is that Andy at the back?
Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
My eyesight's not that great. So.
Yeah, thank you, Jenny. So I'm Andy from Mercy Corp Indonesia. So I just want to inform you about what actually is Mercy Corp doing in Indonesia about the, let's say, involve female in some project and also activity with the private sector. So basically, we build like a financial and business literacy for female and female entrepreneur. So talking about the females, not only the female working on the farm, but it's very important in Indonesia that also female own business. So not only just a matter of deliver the training, but it's very important that how we actually facilitating them access to the financial institution. So this is actually very important because I have seen many project in Indonesia, they just deliver the training and stop. And from our experience, this is not enough because we want to improve their access. So that's why from the beginning it's very important to bring the private sector to improve the capacity of female farmer and also female entrepreneur. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Andy. Just one question there from in front of Monica, and then we'll turn to the panel to answer.
Yeah, good morning. I'm from the Philippines.
Hi.
I am in coffee, so I'm with the Philippine Coffee Board. However, there is an industry organization called Women in Coffee. It's the International Women's Coffee Alliance. Now, I share this with the group because you may want it in your industry, like women in cocoa or cacao, women in corn, women in coconut. And the IWCA meets every year, but we have chapters in 20 countries around the world, from coffee producing countries and from coffee exporting countries. So in this forum or organization, we are able to help each other through communication among the chapters, and we connect to buyers so that they appreciate the premium that is put on coffee produced by women and coffee produced, roasted, and sold by women. Not to be a feminist or what, but since everybody is thinking gender, and there's a lot of resources directed towards gender equity, I don't say equality, I say equity. The group IWCA is something that Indonesia has access to. There's a letter of intent from Indonesia to get its women on. The Philippines is a member, and so with India and a lot of South American, Latin American countries. So it's something that the crowd may want to look at. We have a Facebook page, and you can take a look at the activities, and it's something you can replicate in other industries.
Fantastic. And please never apologize for being a feminist. I think we need more feminists, but thank you for your comments. So there's one question that came out of the voices from the floor, and that was Alex's question about, are there targets that we should be looking at for women in agriculture? And can you maybe quickly share references for statistics and targets with the audience? Just a really quick across the panel. Biranchi, do you want to start with where can people look to get ideas of indicators, targets, and statistics for women in agriculture?
Okay, thanks for that. If I understood the question correctly, I think from my perspective that when it comes to women in agriculture, I think target is probably not the issue. Like for example, it's an issue in politics, and it's an issue in bureaucracy, say for example, because many women are in agriculture already. Like for example, if we take the example of this region, ASEAN, there are 1 billion farmers, out of which 50% are women. So they're out there in the field, side by side, working with their men counterparts. But the issue is a deeper issue. It's about not being recognized for their contribution. It's about not having appropriate rights, what they reserve, and that's across the board, starting from the entitlement, from control and access over land, to access to financial resources, credit, to decision making, what crops should be planted, to how the money that is being generated to be spent. So a lot of these rights issues which are not being provided or given to them. Okay. And then there is this element of also day-to-day basis, a lot of women have to experience in interpersonal relationships violence, which does affect their productive capacity. So I think these issues are more important at this point of time, I believe.
Okay, thank you. So deal with the issues, and then we can think about what targets are meaningful. Yeah. Yeah. And do you have some kind of references you can share quickly with the audience, please?
Okay. Thank you, Jenny. Even though we don't have any indicator to state that is the empowerment of the woman success, but at least women can improve income from the very low income. For example, about $2 a day become at least the same at the regional income, and there is variation within the area. For example, in Bogor is about 2 million rupiah per month for the income per household, something like that. Okay. Yeah, I think is that, and also if we compare to the political situation, is at least 30% women can own the business as a decision maker, 30% from the total, something like that.
Okay, thank you. Andi, you mentioned that in your Cocoa Life project there are very few targets because you don't find that's what you want to focus on. What would you suggest to the audience that they should look at if they're considering women's empowerment work?
In Mondelēz International, our way of working, that instead of putting a specific target, we actually integrated this woman empowerment in our day-to-day operation. We are promising to publish the whole report, segregated this data on the gender mainstream as part of our report to the stakeholder. On the tracking progress, we putting this progress against our key performance indicators, and of course that we integrated the local metric. This is in response to our commitment on the gender mainstream. And of course, the way that we see is really look at from the objective of the program, the focus area of the program itself. I can share that, for example, that we recently published the progress report specific on the Mondelēz Cocoa Life program. On this report, that you will see some report from the baseline versus the actual today. For example, in another country, I did mention for Indonesia that our woman farmer group empowerment now is about 79 in 9 community. When I said community, I'm talking about village in Indonesia. And we are now working on the 16 next community. While in Ghana, for example, we're already working in the 300 community. And it's about 200 community in Ivory Coast. So progress today, there is more about, for example, that we see more on the woman leadership itself. So I may suggest that, for the business, that rather than, or the other program itself, rather than counting on the number of women involved in the training and number of days in the training, I will suggest to rather focus to the number of women that actually play influencing leadership in the area, number of women having a direct access to the financing system, and number of women that actually able to advocate within their own women and community on this all the woman empowerment. Thank you.
Thank you. And just quickly, Thuy, you shared a lot of statistics about women in Vietnam. Alex's question is about indicators for women's empowerment. What would you suggest businesses and governments focus on to measure women's empowerment?
As the indicator, I'm agree with
Andi.
That's the indicator, the numbers, the women to participate in the training course, the numbers, the training course, also not only the technical skill, and also the soft skill like self-reliant leadership and business, etc. And the numbers access to the capital, and the number have arrived the land. And yeah, and I think the indicator to evaluate is the woman have a right to decide the production in the agriculture. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Very conscious that there's a coffee break coming up, so let me just quickly try to wrap up or just share with you some of the key sound bites from today's panel. Biranchi said something that really resonated with me, and that's income and food security is increased when women are empowered, and there are different ways to look at that. Anne said, empower a woman, but invite men to understand the issue as well, because otherwise women become trapped with the double burden of taking care of the household and also being responsible for some of the business aspects. Andi said gender equity is essential and everyone will benefit. So that, that's the business case, is don't discriminate because it's not in your interest to discriminate. And don't have targets, integrate it into your business, into the mainstreaming. Thuy, you shared some amazing statistics, and you also talked about the importance of the government role in providing extension services, which then came back, that conversation came back this way, which was, it's not just the business sector, it's not just government, and it's not just NGOs, it's about partnerships. We all have a role to play in women's empowerment. And just to thank also the speakers from the audience about Women in Coffee, from Imran Louis-Dreyfus for that lovely idea. We'll see more from that next year. And from Andi at Mercy Corps, thank you for the emphasis on access to finance. I'm nearly done. I have 2 things to do. One is to remind you to pick up a copy of the white paper. outside. Constant is flying it like a flag at the back to me. And I just want to finish on the way that I started, which is a visualization of a world in which children go to school, people are healthy, communities enjoy higher incomes, and that is a world in which women are empowered and women in agriculture have equal access to land, technology, training, and inputs. Thank you very much.